Computational systems that produce artworks have always provoked discussion about the definition of art and creativity. Generative art explores the artistic merit of machines by ceding control to procedural systems that produce artworks with as little human intervention as possible. Algorithmic processes are known to be capable of innovation in the arts and design. One such process is digital evolution. Here on the right is a sample of Richard Dawkins' work showing abstract-looking creatures called biomorphs that were constructed through a genetic algorithm. Digital evolution, as the name implies, merely imitates life itself. In nature, there is the mechanism of natural selection that causes inventive adaptations that enhance the survival and reproduction of organisms. Consequently, these may lead to the appearance of design without a designer. We aim our attention at particular adaptations related to behavior in some non-human organisms, namely the creation of artifacts. In 1995, this mysterious nest structure was discovered near Japan. The origin was unknown at first, but it turned out to be a spawning bed created by a male white-spotted pufferfish. Evidence suggested that females of the species evaluate characteristics of the nests and that this behavior may play an important role in mate selection. Several species in the natural world are known to decorate and produce structures that, one could argue, resemble visual art in the sense that they are intended to be attractive. Although humans are not the intended audience for the animal structures, the work arguably does possess perceptual human aesthetic features such as symmetry. The field of artificial life investigates what conditions are necessary to build computational systems and artificial organisms capable of expressing the same kind of creativity and open-ended behavior as observed in nature. The animal structures inspired me to explore to what extent artificial organisms could adapt to similar but digitally induced selection pressures of artistic nature. This approach to digital evolution is somewhat uncommon as the evaluation procedure concerns artifacts that are external to the agent. Their success lies in the quality of their artifacts rather than their direct behavior. Early evolutionary art, such as the seminal work of Sims, deals with symbolic expressions that can produce complex-looking phenotypes. These were often optimized by an interactive evolutionary algorithm, or IGA, meaning that humans evaluate the phenotype and decide its fitness value. As aesthetic quality is naturally highly subjective, IGAs provide a convenient solution, but they do, however, reduce system autonomy and introduce a fitness bottleneck. For this reason, we decided to find a computational solution for aesthetic evaluation, which I will explain shortly. Evolutionary art typically involves a direct mapping between genotype and phenotype, which does not allow for great levels of complexity to emerge, unlike in biology. The existence of an environment potentially does allow a system to demonstrate complex emergent behaviors by exploitation of dynamical hierarchies. Clark and Chalmers suggest that the environment directly influences an agent's behaviors as part of a two-way interaction between action and perception. And they also write that biological brains have evolved to take advantage of the environment by offloading cognition to it through the body. Simultaneously, our visual systems evolve to rely on it more. This is also relevant for the creation of art. Brink states that the production and consumption of art can be accounted for by the theory of situated cognition. The quote shown here exemplifies painting as a situated activity and is what inspired me to explore this artistic medium in my research. Some ideas discussed in the paper were explored in the art machines created by Gene Tingley in the 1950s. The robotic action painters of Mora drawn upon concepts from biology, situated awareness, collective self-organization, and stigmergy found in the collective behaviors of ants and other social insects. We take inspiration from the flexibility of robot painters and the emerging complexity of swarms to explore the effects of aesthetic selection pressures in an evolutionary art system. Carl Sims used digital evolution to evolve creatures for simple behaviors such as locomotion and jumping. This was possible with limited sensing capabilities. For instance, these digital creatures have no visual awareness, just touch and proprioceptive sensors. We implemented the genetic morphology encoding modeled after Sims' original design. In our experiment, we use a hexapod for its benchmark status in reinforcement learning and robotics research. Agents in our system live in three-dimensional space and are subject to physically plausible simulation. Agents sense their environment through a proprioceptive sensor, implemented by tracking the current joint angles, and a vision sensor, capturing a bitmap representation of a portion of the current canvas. A convolutional autoencoder, represented by V, encodes the bitmap to a latent vector Z. This is subsequently appended to the joint angle vector A, forming an input vector to the action controller C. This is a linear model that produces target joint angles for the agent in the next target frame T+1. This is a quick demonstration of an untrained agent. You can see the vision bitmap is updated in real time on brushstrokes and extracts a small local section of the canvas. Here are a number of examples of what untrained agents typically produce. For these, we implemented a method to evaluate their aesthetic quality. There are many theories that attempt to find an explanation of aesthetic experience. For our works, we decided to adopt a formalist theory as it proposes aesthetic experience relies on the intrinsic beauty of an artifact. This is convenient for us as we want to find an objective function for our training process. Birkhoff theorizes that aesthetic response to an object is stronger when the degree to which psychological effort is required to perceive it is met with a higher degree of tension being released as the perception is realized. This release comes from orderly features such as symmetry and self-similarity. Birkhoff's work has been met with its fair share of criticism, but two aspects remain legitimate today, namely the intuitive connection between aesthetic value and order-complexity relationships, and the search for a neurological base of aesthetic behavior. We made some slight adjustments to an aesthetic fitness function invented by Mercado and Cardozo that computes the aesthetic reward of an image by dividing a measure of an image's complexity by its processing complexity. These two terms can be calculated by means of JPEG and fractal compression of the original image as shown in the formulas on the left. If we assume our fitness function to be a reliable measurement of aesthetic quality, it should produce a high reward when given the late period action painting by Jackson Pollock. We did some experiments to verify this and found that it is in fact true. For a thorough explanation of the method and its connection to the literature, please refer to our paper. We designed a fairly simple comparative experiment to put the art system to the test. We run two setups, one in which the agent has access to a narrow vision patch and one with a wide vision patch. This is to discover what setup may be most desirable to help agents learn some correspondence between their actions and good artwork. Before training the controller, we had to pre-train the vision model to encode observations to a latent vector z. We used a dataset of 20,000 collected observations and trained the model to produce accurate reconstructions for 200 epochs. We believe the reconstructions present superficial yet discernible features that are adequate for the current task. To optimize the control policy, we used covariance matrix adaptation evolution strategies. Existing research has shown that the algorithm performs relatively well on deceptive landscapes or sparse reward functions up to a couple of thousand parameters. Our fitness results show that the wide perspective population performs better overall in terms of fitness, but shows barely any signs of improvement once a local optimum has been reached. This is unlike the narrow perspective population, which shows a slight upward trend around the 300 generation, as well as some best ever artifacts. We see that the sort of artifacts produced by both populations can easily be distinguished from approximately the 40th generation. At this point, the wide perspective agents exploit an effective circular movement strategy with little diversity among paintings. In contrast, narrow perspective agents struggle to escape a local optimum early on, but demonstrate far more diversity among their artifacts. This suggests that potentially fit strategies are being explored rather than being exploited. These are the best artifacts of both populations and their key statistics. We see that our design selection pressures based in aesthetic properties of an external artifact can evolve virtual organisms with modest success. We also plotted our coverage measurements against the fitness results and found that coverage is an accurate predictor of fitness for the wide perspective population, but not necessarily for the narrow perspective population. Both populations show a clear distinction in their movement strategies induced by the problem landscape of the visual sensors. We see that perception and action are closely coupled together, and therefore distinct actions may be more likely to be triggered when visual observations are more volatile, as is the case with the narrow perspective agents. This may explain their complicated training process. For further discussion, please refer to our paper. Whether some of the resulting artifacts are aesthetically pleasing is up to the beholder. The chaotic patterns and compositions resemble abstract expressionist action paintings, and the works also share an interesting connection to this art movement, as all brushstrokes represent nothing but the actions themselves. With that, one could argue for their artistic value.